Hello, everybody. I'm on to another episode of the Fantasy Wildcard Devy show. It's another 2 weeks has gone by. Feels like nothing when we're waiting for these episodes and stuff. And we've got the crew back again. Here we're going to dissect some 2024 freshman quarterbacks, which is the quarterbacks that have committed to teams in college. More December with the early window, which is weird still to see, but yeah. 2024 quarterbacks we're looking forward to. But first, let's introduce the guys before we get into them. Jack, welcome. Definitely a couple of quarterbacks that you'll be talking about from your team. How's your 2 weeks been, and how's missing football?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, George. I had half term with the kids, which was nice. Got out to Yorkshire Wildlife Park in the Deep, so really maximised my wild creatures exposure over the last 2 weeks to make up for no football to watch. But excited to dive in on these quarterbacks, and had an excuse to put on the highlight tapes over the last week.
Yeah, it's definitely that time of year. We're all family guys, so it's definitely that time of year to spend more time with the wife and kids. I'm sure you've been doing the same as well, Phil.
Absolutely the opposite. I've just finished a 33 round startup. So I was on half term as well, being a school teacher by day, and I ignored my family and indulged in this startup. It was a Devy league. It was really interesting, to be fair, because it was one big draft, so your kind of normal startup, rookies without landing spots, which felt really weird, and Devy all in one. I had a great time. I was in my element.
Sounds like fun. I remember when you were messaging in the group and stuff, and I was like, he's making me itch for a startup here. He's bringing him forward. But yeah, that's definitely something that we'll look into. As Fantasy Wildcard, every team will get some leads going. I know Kev's going to do it as well, so stay tuned for that going forward. So yeah, we've had a couple of episodes to get our feet wet, and before, what better way to start? Like after them 2 episodes, and look at the 22 freshmen, which a lot of people probably don't know anything about, if they're like kind of like casuals in Devy. But we're going to introduce you to them. We're going to go through all the division groups, but we've got to start with quarterback. And it's before we get into them, it's one of the hardest to evaluate, in Devy quarterbacks. So all these guys we're going to talk about are a 5-star, 4-star, and you probably expect them to go on and do something in the NFL, but it's not always the case. So looking into them early, in high school can give you a little bit of insight, but obviously when they get in to the teams and actually start playing. But let's take a look at them. And Phil, you're going to kick us off with DJ Lagway from Florida, someone who looks an exciting prospect coming out of high school.
Yeah, absolutely. So DJ Lagway is the 5-star recruit out of Texas. 6'2", 225. He's a grown man already. The number 1 QB in Texas, and or number 1 recruit out of Texas, and number 1 QB in the country, as per 24/7 Sports. Multi-sport athlete. He was offered college scholarships in football and baseball. I know very little about baseball. I've got no real idea how it works. It's rounders with gloves. But apparently he was offered a scholarship as a pitcher. But he's decided football's his way forward. He was the Gatorade 2023 National Player of the Year for all of high school football in the USA. And he set the Texas Class 6A record for a single season touchdown passes. So the way the high school football works is it kind of classes up 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. 6A is the elite level of high school football. So he was playing in some esteemed company out there in Texas, which we know is a hotbed for footballing talent, and managed to go ahead and set a single season record for touchdown passes. So yeah, quite the prospect.
Yeah, he is. He's I was just talking off air before we started, saying that this is the 2 week leading up to this episode is the first time I proper dived into these guys, and I just wanted to go back and keep watching this guy. To be honest with you, he's really exciting. He's obviously, like most people coming out of high school, he's a work in progress, especially as a passer. He's got a talented arm. He's got good arm strength. Throwing off platform. He's got all this, but obviously it's just doing it consistently, which obviously you hope he will learn going forward in college. But as Phil mentioned, his size is exactly what you want in a quarterback, real great size, and but it doesn't lack what he can do as a dual threat, as a runner. You think at 6'2", 225, he might not have that speed, but he has quite good speed. Obviously can break off 30, 40 yards, and then obviously the defensive backs get back at him, but he can still break off them big yardage, on these designed runs that he did play in high school. I don't know how they will use him. Cause like I say, if his arm talent is really good, but it does need work, it's hard not to look at him and see a potential Anthony Richardson, and I'm one of them people that don't like comparisons, but it's just hard not to see him coming out, like especially with him going to Florida as well. But yeah, he's really someone I'm excited for, and obviously we'll move on to you now, Jack, and look at, obviously we know that he's landed at Florida. What does that look like going forward? For him.
Yeah, it's interesting mentioning Anthony Richardson. Obviously, we got to see a glimpse of him in the NFL and what the development at Florida really did for him and his draft stock in that final year. He'd absolutely shot up draft boards, didn't he? So if you've got someone like Lagway who's got a similar play style, obviously they're not the same person, but they're in the same system under Billy Napier at Florida. So I like it. I think all landing spots now come with an asterisk because of the transfer portal and the fragility of some head coaching tenures. But he will, in my opinion, come in and immediately work his way up to that backup quarterback role in Florida, I think. So Graham Mertz, the 5th, 6th, 7th year player, is going to be back for another year, his second in Florida. And he actually had a good year last year. He played pretty well. He definitely wasn't the problem in the swamp. So I think it's quite clear that Lagway will definitely sit behind Graham Mertz this season. But Florida are a team that are kind of in need of a kickstart. Last year was, as well as Mertz played, Florida didn't play that well and tailed off quite badly towards the end of the season. And in a really untypical Billy Napier way, when you think about the teams that he's coached, they've been really disciplined. They've been on time. They haven't shot themselves in the foot. And last year, Florida really, really did that. So it's put Napier and the coaching staff and the team under a bit of extra pressure. And this isn't the year that Florida want to be under extra pressure. They've got a horrible gauntlet of a schedule this season. It's like on top of their SEC schedule, they've got Florida State, Miami, and UCF in out of conference, which is tough. Like UCF being the weakest of your out of conference opponents is whoever put that together really didn't do his coach any favors. And there's I looked at the back end of the schedule, and it's not even the back end. It's from week 7. So from week 7, Florida play Tennessee, Kentucky. They get a bye week. They've got Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State to end the season, with the optimistic extra date of the SEC championship game, which Florida will not be partaking in as a not so bold prediction. So the reason I mention all of this is because Billy Napier might find himself under some pressure, and therefore in a bit of a desperation move might look to the future and look to offer a spark to the fan base, to the athletic director, trying to, in want of a better phrase, save his own job. Now, that's obviously not what we want to see from a developmental point of view for DJ Lagway, because you don't want him to be thrown to the wolves when he's not ready. But it could happen. It might be that DJ Lagway gets some game time, more than just mop-up duty this year, which would be really interesting to see whether he sinks or swims. And I really hope it isn't a case of him being thrown under the bus to try and save a coaching staff. But we'll see how much time Lagway gets. And if things go a bit more to plan and more to how we would like things to run. Lagway will sit this year, but then he'll have a clear path to take over, as the fan base will probably absolutely demand in year 2. And the schedule's not going to get as tough as this in 2025.
It's good points mentioned there, Jack. So obviously we saw, like you say, I do fear for Napier next year. To be honest with you, I don't. He's already on a hot seat going into this year, and like you say, it's a lot of that were put on Graham Mertz last year, and I thought it wasn't too bad at all. But similar thing, but we Spencer Rattler, if you think about a couple of years back at Oklahoma, where the fans were on the back of Lincoln Riley and stuff, and he had a freshman sat on the sideline there, which he brought in, and obviously it worked out quite well that way and stuff, which it can do, but it also can go the opposite way as well. And obviously, from a Devy point of view, if you've got DJ like where you don't want to see someone thrown into something with confidence not going forward, it's what I mean. I mentioned at the start, these guys are 5-star, 4-star guys on talent, but college football is a different animal. We know high school is at a decent level as well, but college football is a different animal. And if you have all the talent, confidence in mental strengths is a different thing, and if that goes, sometimes it's hard to get it back as well. So from a Devy aspect, if you see someone thrown in that early and they lose that, it can be a tough thing to get back. But yeah, it's weird, because like I say, he could be thrown in, but even if Napier goes and a new guy comes in, does Lagway go ahead and stuff? So it's one early on stuff he's not going to see any time, but maybe at the back end he might do. But like you said, you'd hope not as well. Anything good for Lagway though and stuff is like, if he gets some like garbage time, it'd be great just to see him, because like I'm really excited for him going forward. Moving on to the next guy, and this guy hasn't thrown a ball in college football, and he's had more teams than most other players that played 4 or 5 years in college. Jack, it's Dylan Raiola, who's now at Nebraska, but you're going to let us know where else he's been before that.
Yeah, Dylan Raiola has created more headlines than anyone still in high school really deserves to create. But fair play to him. He's a highly sought after quarterback. That's why they get the attention, and in this season of NIL as it is, he's got to make the most of it. And we'll get into why in a second. So Raiola is a 6'3", 230-pound, 5-star quarterback coming out of multiple high schools. He's the number 2 ranked quarterback in the nation, and he's a dual sport athlete. So he played baseball in high school. His final year was at Buford in Georgia, but he has been around the track. So he's been enrolled at 4 different high schools in 3 years. And in his senior year at high school, he committed to Ohio State before decommitting and committing to Georgia, where he was playing his senior year of high school football. And then on National Signing Day, decommitted once again and has landed himself what we think is a strong, solid commitment at Nebraska. Now, there's a reason he was so highly sought after. The number of offers he got at each decommitment and the number of conversations that were open with different schools was through the roof. Looking at his recruiting profile, the number of offer letters he got is quite staggering. So he's done well to still land at a place that he really wants to. He had a strong opening year at Burleson in Texas, where he won. He got some regional award recognition. Nothing sort of too fancy, but a good start for a freshman in high school. He threw for 3,341 yards and 32 touchdowns, and added 9 on the ground. So it's a strong start to high school football. He went to Chandler in Arizona for his junior season. And led them to the semifinals of Arizona's Open Division Championship. So a good pedigree of leading his team to some success there. He then announced a move to Phoenix Pinnacle, but reversed that decision and moved to Buford for his senior year, where he played pretty well. He got the team to an 11-2 record. He threw 34 touchdowns and just the one interception, which is something that we really want to see, and is quite special, really, for high school players to not put the ball in danger very much at all, and took Buford to the quarterfinals in Georgia's highest classification. On like a personal level, he was an Elite 11 finalist. He was the Polynesian Football Player of the Year 2023. And he is the son of Dominic Raiola, who played for 14 years in the NFL. And so he has that kind of NFL pedigree. The family know what it takes to get to the NFL and stay there. And he also has ties to Nebraska, family ties there. So there were lots of factors that led into his journey that landed him at Nebraska. But yeah, that's who he is. That's how he's got there.
Yes, a lot of the rumours that led him there was like situated around Curb Street by the sounds of it, but I don't know how true that is. But that's another story. But yeah, it's a strange one. Like with Dylan Raiola, like so many high schools and so many college teams before throwing a ball in college. It's not one I can put my finger on really if it is a concern or not. Like obviously if he gets onto the field, and does it with Nebraska for 2 or 3 years, you forget about that. But if he starts transferring around again, even playing well, I don't know. I don't really know how to like put it into like how I feel about a Devy prospect when they're doing that. I suppose time will tell. But Phil, if you have got him on your Devy team already, or if you thinking about picking him, what stands out to him, on the field?
Purely and simply, like already he's got that kind of cliche NFL caliber arm. He throws a great deep ball and can push it to all levels of the field, inside and outside the numbers. And what's quite nice is as he does it, if it needs pushing, he will push it. If it needs feathering with a nice light touch, he can do that as well. You can really see him kind of taper his throws depending on what's needed. He kind of judges that really, really well. And it can be a little bit misleading, obviously, when you watch a lot of we don't get the privilege, we're not privy to watching a lot of high school football. We see a lot of kind of YouTube highlights and cut-ups and things like that. But a lot of these guys are in those kind of shells and short circuits as well. Your Elite 11s, your on-3 kind of stuff. When you watch him throw under kind of those air conditions, as they kind of call them, like there's no wasted motion in his mechanics whatsoever. Everything is so smooth. And, it projects really, really well. Like you see him with all these kind of Mahomes, Caleb, Lamar style, unusual kind of throwing angles and techniques. He's got that kind of baseball style release if it's needed. It's kind of all the rage, isn't it, at the moment? Like all these Mahomes clones that people want to kind of see. He's got the lot in his locker. I think in addition to that, kind of one of the things I noticed when I was watching his huddle highlights from last season is he moves well for a big lad at 230 pounds. He moves well within the pocket to buy time for himself. He's got, and I suppose that, the one perk he's got compared to a lot of his peers in having moved around so much. You said 4 high schools in 3 years. He's played in a lot of different systems, and he's got significant experience both under center and out of shotgun. So that that kind of sets him apart from his peers at the moment. That's not to say that others won't catch him up with the more they kind of get used to whatever systems are going to run at college. But he's already kind of experienced an awful lot of football and different systems, and has looked very adept at handling both.
Yeah, he's as it stands, like he's probably the one out of the top 4 or 5 that looks like he's probably going to get a start next year as it stands. Obviously, no one's been said if they are going to start or who's the start. But if you look at the quarterback room at Nebraska, it's a bit dire at the moment. Obviously, there's still a spring portal where they could add an experienced guy. I suppose they could look at spring practice, see how he does. If they like what they see coming out of that, into the season, thinking this guy's our starter. If not, they might look at adding an experienced quarterback, if depending what there is there, or I'm sure like they'll be talking to someone who's on a roster already to convince them to come over. You know, we know that goes on, but yeah. So that's in that instance, it's a good landing spot as of now. In Nebraska, you know, it's going to play some good defenses over there. You know, he's got Matt Rule there, who obviously is probably seen as his time at Carolina has been a bit of a bad head coach, but we know if you follow college football, he's done really well at the teams he's been at before. I think it was Temple won it before Baylor, and but at Baylor he got the best out of Charlie Brewer there, which is in his freshman season. Like his numbers were unbelievable for a freshman. Obviously went on not to do much after, but he is capable of doing that for quarterbacks. And I think Matt Rule is a good head coach for him. You know there, and yeah, he's got some good receivers there as well. You know, we've got another. He'll be a redshirt freshman, Malachi Coleman this year and stuff if he does start, and tight end Thomas Fedone and stuff. So yeah, I like the landing spot. You know, obviously we don't know when he gets on the field what he's going to do, but he could easily start this year as a freshman. Obviously, the trouble with starting as a true freshman is obviously if it goes sour early on, if there's no one there to fall back on and stuff, they might persevere with him, and that can be a bad thing. But like Jack and Phil mentioned, you know, he seems like he's an experienced kid. You know, he's obviously got his father who's played in the NFL before. He's got good people around him, so I suppose there's a lot of positives there for him to go in as a start. So yeah, he's an exciting prospect, and one that we might see a bit of action this season for. Moving on to the next guy, we've kind of bunched these two together, which Jack, you'll be excited to talk about. Both Ohio State commits, which is strange, 2 high commits going to the same team, but we'll break them up. But obviously, one of them is Julian Sayin, and the other one's Aaron Nolan. But we'll break them up. We'll start with Julian Sayin first, because obviously he's the highest ranked prospect out of them all. Obviously, he's come over. Decommitted from Alabama on it. Sorry, Phil.
Sorry, I'm over it.
You've got a good one in Austin Mack anyway. I can assure you. He's already been. It's weird because he's actually going off topic a little bit. He's actually similar age and stuff, but obviously he declared early from high school, like for going his senior year. But anyway, that's another story. So you're all right. It's okay, Phil. You're all right over there.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's so this guy's obviously committed to Ohio State now. 6'1", 195 pounds, California native. He won the in 2023. He won the California Gatorade Player of the Season, which is, as you know, there's a few states like Texas and California where it's like a hotbed of talent. So he played some really good teams over there. In his senior season, had 2,347 yards for 24 touchdowns, just 1 interception, which is pretty impressive. You know, like in high school, you know, these guys, like, especially if they're coming up against lesser schools, you know, sometimes like to air the ball out a lot more, get overconfident. So you see a lot more interceptions and stuff. So just 1 interception is pretty damn good. You know, he had a 74.5% pass completion as well in his senior season. He also carried the ball 29 times for 186 yards, which says that he likes to throw the ball, this guy. MVP at the Elite 11 finals, which, again, Phil mentioned these Elite 11 and things like that. So if you're winning the MVP at these, you're a damn good player. So yeah, 5-star, number 3 ranked quarterback by 247 Sports Composite, number 1 ranked by 247 Sports, and yeah, he's it's weird. I've reeled off all these amazing stats, and he's ranked number 3 quarterback. But I'm sure that doesn't matter to you, Jack.
No, I mean, he is a complete surprise to me to be talking about as an Ohio State commit. I think when Aaron Noland got his commitment, we kind of thought, okay, that's it. We're done and dusted with the quarterback room. Strong with Lincoln Kineholes in the year or class above, and Devin Brown there, and Will Howard coming in. I thought, great, 4 quarterbacks, maybe 3 after spring, but it's a strong room. And then Julian saying on the back of Saban's retirement, kind of hopping into the transfer portal, and it happened really quickly. So I was definitely surprised, absolutely delighted to have another high caliber quarterback in the room. You think that the more quality that's in there, the more that's going to bring the cream to the top, hopefully. So, but yeah, Sayin is a polished pocket passer. I'd say he's not got the strongest arm. He's not super mobile, but he protects the ball well, and he throws with really good accuracy and anticipation, and his ball placement is pretty good. He can hit receivers in stride and lead them open and out the way of defenders, which is really important because you don't want your top receivers getting whacked the second they've got the ball, and that happens too many times. They're out the game and they've got injury problems racking up. So he's someone that can lead an offense really well and lead a team really well. I think he's got some really strong football IQ and leadership potential there. He is fairly well sized, but he's got room to add a little bit more muscle to him, which I think is probably the case. We'll probably say that for all the quarterbacks, because anyone that comes from high school into college football, as you say, it's a step above, and the strength and conditioning is a really important part of that, and colleges will place some high importance on that. So I think he's got more to add, and he needs to, because he's had the game manager tag leveled at him. I've heard that in a few places. He's someone who can control a game. I really personally don't want to see him compared to Mac Jones, but we're talking about the Mac Jones in college, not the Mac Jones of my New England Patriots, because Mac Jones was that. He was very similar to what I've just described Julian saying, as someone who can control an offense, can get the ball to his playmakers really quickly, really accurately, and he can his pocket awareness was really good. So Julian Sayin has those skills, but I'd love to see him add a bit more muscle and work on his deep throws and the velocity he can get on those deep passes, and become a bit of a bigger threat with his legs. But all of those traits that we've listed about Sayin are exactly what Ryan Day wants in a quarterback at Ohio State. It's almost, if you look at all of the players that he's had in the last few years, including Justin Fields, who obviously showed a lot more running in the NFL and was maybe underutilized in that way, but Ryan Day didn't want to use him that way. He wanted an accurate pocket passer who could manipulate defenders, and Julian Sayin is that kind of player.
Yeah, you beat me to it there when you mentioned Matt Jones. I was about to say at the end of it sounded like just describing Matt Jones, but you got that in before I can say it. But yeah, I think you described him perfectly there. And you want to see more, and hopefully that's what you're going to get when it comes to college. You know, you've got you come into these. Go to college, get around these college coaches, and at Ohio State, we've seen what they've done. We've been a lot of criticism of quarterbacks coming out of Ohio State in the past and stuff, but I personally like Justin Fields, and obviously a bit different player to him, but hopefully they can mold him into a more complete player rather than, like you mentioned, a pocket passer, a game manager type player. Before we'll move on to Aaron Nolan, because I'm sure Phil, when he once looks at the landing spot, he'll like to bring both of them into play, you know, with the other quarterbacks there. So Aaron Nolan is the other guy that obviously transferred before Julian Sayin. He's similar size, 6'2", 195 pounds is listed at. He's a Georgia native, which is a good pickup coming out of Georgia and stuff, because obviously Georgia like to keep all their own over there. So yeah. Bit of you can obviously, we mentioned the pocket passer from Julian Sayin. You can see obviously Aaron Nolan drop off in a percentage for him. You know, it's 66.5%. You know, pass accuracy, 149 from 224 pass attempts, 2,140 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Which obviously, when you look at it and you think, 9 interceptions, it's quite irregular to see like 6 to 9 interceptions from high school players. That's why it's quite strong that, like Julian Saint's only had one, which is really good to see. He's 4-star. Obviously, we mentioned the guy's 5-star, and Nolan's 4-star. Number 7 ranked quarterback in the composite, but he's number 4 ranked in 247 Sports. Yeah. So yeah, obviously you mentioned Julian Say and Jack. You got another quarterback coming over. What's different about Air Nolan compared to Julian Say?
Yeah, Air Nolan, someone ranked a little bit lower, 4-star prospect, but someone that Ohio State were kind of officially in on late, but were very keen on him from early days. But in terms of like official visits and official offer, it came quite late. And he's someone who they tracked, and again is someone who is what Ryan Day wants from a quarterback. Now he's not as refined as Julian Sayin, but I think he also has a bit more of upside than Julian Sayin. So it's going to be a really interesting battle between the two of them for wherever they sit in the hierarchy of the quarterback room this year. But he threw some absolutely absurd statistics around in his junior season. He threw for over 4,000 yards and 55 touchdowns in one high school year. That is absolutely insane. Like, that doesn't happen very often. And he like you mentioned, he had a decent senior year, but did throw 9 interceptions. And it's not just the interceptions, there's a few fumbles in there as well. So protecting the ball is something that maybe he needs to work on a little bit as he moves up a level, and defenders are going to be sharper and quicker and that bit more on his case. But he is an accurate thrower of the ball. He has really good ball placement, and he throws with touch. He can drop that ball in a lovely arc right into the breadbasket of a receiver. So if you are looking for someone who can manipulate that long separation, he is the guy that can get those touch passes rainbowing over a defender into his receiver's hands. He manipulates the pocket really well. He really senses the pressure that's coming, and that's what he's put on tape. Now, the competition he played against was probably a little bit lower standard than Julian Sayin and DJ Lagway in particular, but still, you can only play against what you're put up against. He's a quick processor. He reads the field really well, and therefore he will run if he needs to, but he's not someone who looks to take off at any opportunity. He's going to try and find his reads 1, 2, 3, and then go if he has to, which I think is something Ohio State are really looking to add. There's, like you say, in the past, criticism of Ohio State quarterbacks has been 1 read and go, or 1 read, 2 read, and they're gone. Or they've just held on to the ball looking for that first read to come open. So I think Air Noland has the game nous to start to change that if he becomes a starting quarterback at some point in Ohio State.
Yeah, he's like I say, it's very, very unusual to see two. I say it's unusual. We're in usual times, aren't we, in college football when it comes to transfer portal and things like that. So I'm like that. It's a good segue onto Phil. Sorry to keep you waiting there, Phil. But
it's quite all right.
I thought you'd like to bring them both into, obviously, with a landing spot. Both of them are going to come into play in the conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, the big question, like you just alluded to, like in the times of the transfer portal, is could one of them end up transferring back out? I'm not too sure. I don't follow the kind of Ohio State kind of beat writers all that much, and I don't know what noises have been made out of that. Jack, you'll probably know more than me, but you've got to wonder, with the power, the kind of player power that exists at the moment in this kind of new dynamic of the transfer portal, if one of the guys don't like the way it starts for them, could they potentially look at transferring back out? Go on, Jack. Go on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Air Noland was, when it was announced that Julian Sayin was committed to Ohio State, Air Noland was actually at the basketball game, and they went straight over to him. Obviously, to the beat writers were trying to get his comments, and he was fully committed. I think he was a Buckeye fan growing up. He's like, as soon as he got that Ohio State letter, there was no no decision to be made for him. So he's saying all the right things. He's going to stick around, and obviously that is before any kind of quarterback competition. But he's not scared off by Julian saying arriving.
That's definitely encouraging. I mean, so like when you look at the landing spot, like I put it into two pieces. One, you've got the depth chart in the room. And then secondly, you've got like the infrastructure and the kind of coaching setup. Now, obviously, we mentioned on the last show that they brought Will Howard across from Kansas State. And I don't think for a moment that Will Howard has come across to be a backup to anybody, be it Devin Brown and Lincoln Kineholz, who are already on the roster, or the two new boys. I think it's Will Howard's job. And I think, suggesting anything otherwise would be foolish. But obviously, he's got a year before he'll be looking at moving on. And you've got to look then and see the talent of these two lads that have come in this year. And no disrespect to Devin Brown and Lincoln Kineholz, but we've kind of said previously, the portal now works both ways, and teams might be having quiet little words to some of these guys that are taking a roster spot and a scholarship spot and saying maybe your football is best played elsewhere. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Devin Brown or Lincoln Kineholz leave in the portal. And then really, I think these two, Aaron Noland and Julian Saying, should be chomping at the bit to show that they can be the next man up and that they earn the right, if you like, to be second on that depth chart. So that's the kind of depth chart side of things. I think you've then got the infrastructure, and for me, that's where they're onto a win, aren't they? Let's be honest. You're surrounded by blue chip talent. Blue chip talent in the running back room that can help a young quarterback. A factory of receivers that Brian Hartline's producing. With elite talented players to do the hard work for the quarterbacks and make them look good. You've got obviously an offensive-minded head coach in Ryan Day. You've got Chip Kelly coming across, who we know can, in his system, kind of air it out and do some incredible things in the passing game. And then obviously the kind of one constant is Corey Dennis as the QB coach as well. Has worked with Fields, he's worked with Stroud, and it's hard not to love the landing spot for that reason, for whichever one of these guys puts themselves in the lead for the job.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned there, Devin Brown, Lincoln Kineholz, I think, it's likely one of them may transfer out. Will Howard's been brought in to that experienced guy. Like I'm not saying for 1 minute, Jack, it's an all-in season. It never is. I see it's always all in every year, but it just feels like there's something different this year. With the transfers they've brought in to really properly have a crack. Obviously, it's been disappointing in the last two years for him and stuff. So it's a big year for Ryan Day. So it seems like he's gone all out, bringing in someone like Will Howard, experienced head. Obviously, Devin Brown and Lincoln Council are going to challenge for the job in spring, but they've brought Will Howard expecting that he's going to be clear leader, experience, and obviously if it doesn't go that way, then they might have a problem. But the two freshman guys will sit there, hopefully learn a lot, like Phil mentioned, from the coaching staff, and let's see where they are next year if both of them are happy to compete again next spring to see who's the starter there potentially, and then again another merry-go-round where one of them might not be happy. But this is, as Devy plays, this is what you're looking at. You're looking at 2-3 years down the line. I know you're not predicting what can happen, but these two guys, if you're going to pick them on your Devy teams, you're looking, because after year one, as a freshman, likely not going to play. But you don't want to get into that sophomore season with them potentially not playing again. You start to worry about, I'm not playing. So having two guys on the roster, like, I know Jack will look at it as a Ohio State fan thinking this is brilliant, but like as a Devy player, sit back and thinking, if you have got Aaron Noland and he hasn't played in that second season, you probably want him to transfer out in the sophomore to get some game time. So it's hard to look at it both ways, and it's going, Jack.
Yeah, and because that's exactly what's happened to Devin Brown, isn't it? He waited. Ohio State brought in CJ Stroud CJ Stroud won the job, and then Devin Brown got injured and didn't win the job last year, and now he's, Walker Howard's been brought in, so there's not enough faith in him. And as a Devy prospect, Devin Brown was a really high 4-star recruited quarterback, and he's just not played, and he's got probably 2 years of eligibility left, but he can't stick around on the bench at Ohio State, and you don't want that to happen in 2 years' time with these two guys.
Yeah, because Devin Brown was like a guy that was like highly like rated in Devy circles with a lot of people, you know, like with that class and stuff. And it's I mean, it's just what I was saying at the start. Sometimes you can 4 or 5 stars come out, and it doesn't always work out. So it's hard to hit on these quarterbacks at times in Devy. But they're obviously, we've mentioned the top 4 on 247 Sports ranking. We wanted to fit a few more in and stuff to have a little brief chat about. Picked a guy each for us. Jack, you've picked a big lad, a very big lad.
Yeah. So these guys are like people that you wouldn't be picking in your first round of your Devy drafts this year, but people that you might stash on your bench, and you kind of fingers crossed you're hoping to see something from them and maybe flip them for something more exciting a couple of months into the season. And Walker White is exactly that kind of prospect. He's someone that physically is, as you say, he's a big lad. He's 6'3", 222 pounds coming into college, which is humongous. And his playing style really, unsurprisingly, is quite physical and athletic. So he's a 4-star quarterback from Little Rock Christian Academy. He is mobile. He is really physically gifted. So he's got that high upside dual threat quarterback potential. He's athletic, muscular. He's got a strong arm. He can put touch on his passes, but he is also a threat with the ball. And that is a fantasy gold mine if that is translatable to the NFL. Now, obviously, a long way to go for that. He's in Auburn, where he'll probably sit behind Peyton Thorne again this year, who's returning. And that's probably a good thing for Walker White, a chance to grow and develop and learn the Auburn playbook. And actually, as a landing spot, Auburn they've had a couple of down years, and they're really like yearning for the Cam Newton days. But they've put together quite a couple of really good recruiting classes. They're starting to develop a bit of talent offensively and defensively. And once Peyton Thorne is another one who has just played so many years in college. I've got no idea what his official classification is anymore. He will not be playing, surely, in 2025. And so Walker White has quite a clear route to a starting job for a fan base that will be crying out for him. Like he could feature this year probably more conceivably than someone like Julian Sayin or Air Nolan or even DJ Lagway. I think Walker White's got a good chance of seeing some reps, and you know, I'm not suggesting that Peyton Thorne is going to hand over the starting job, but there is an opportunity here for Auburn to really kickstart their future with a really exciting prospect. And Auburn is one of those places that you need the fan base on side, because they are fanatical, and their fans will not appreciate me saying this, but they've been behind Big Brother in state Alabama for too long, and they just won't settle for it, especially with Saban going. So Walker White could hit some early playing time. He could light up with some flash plays because of the size and skill set he has, and that is great for your Devy prospects. And yeah, he's a long shot, so anything positive, you're taking that to the bank.
Yeah, I think even if Peyton Thorne somehow manages to convince the SCA to give him another year, I haven't seen anything, so I don't actually know, but he's still on the depth charts everywhere, so who knows. But yeah, surely even if he does manage to stay, they can't play him. It were a bit of a disaster last year for Peyton Thorne, and yeah, I'm not sure who else they've got in the quarterback room, but I'm sure Auburn fans might have a go at me here and stuff and everything. But it seems like looking at it, a good place for Walker White, maybe with a good spring to maybe put himself in the conversation to, if not start, have a backup role, which is always a good for a true freshman. Phil, what guy did you pick out?
So you should know by now, after my Juice Wells monologue last week, that I enjoy a story. So I've chosen CJ Carr just to set the scene. 6'2", 195 pounds, number one recruit out of Michigan this year, number 6 QB nationally, and the number 45 overall kind of prospect, according to 247 Sports. Like from a family of Michigan legends. So his granddad was Lloyd Carr, the ex-head coach from 95 to 2007, who won a national title there. His other grandfather on his maternal side is a former Michigan safety and college football Hall of Famer. His mum graduated from Michigan with a scholarship. She was an athlete as well. I can't remember what sport, if I'm being completely honest. And, he's just bleeds kind of blue and gold. So, of course, he committed to Notre Dame. He's heading out to Notre Dame. He's not following the family despite those massive Michigan ties. And just to be completely clear, like, this guy is a developmental prospect. Like, he's not going to Notre Dame this year to challenge Riley Leonard. Likewise, I don't even think he'll be competing for the backup job. I think that'll be between Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchie. For CJ Carr, it very much will be about learning and developing. He is very technical. When you watch the tape, he's people rave about kind of how technical he is and how high his kind of football IQ is. He's played in a high school system. Like when you watch the Huddled film, like it's very gimmick is the wrong word. It's 1 and 2 read, and it's very, very quick strike. He will need to show that he can go through his progressions and read through to that 3rd, 4th progression, and keep that internal clock running properly. And that's going to be a real kind of developmental kind of phase for him this year. I don't expect him to be anywhere near the field this season, but if he goes on kind of behind the scenes to show that development, he's a far more talented prospect than the two I mentioned before, and 25 could easily be his year.
Yeah, he's someone that, like, when I think I caught a little bit of him and stuff because I was like trying to find out at these guys which one I was gonna talk about and stuff and everything. I watched a little bit of Carr, and he, like I said, if he can get on the field in 2025, he looks like a good prospect. And like you say, Notre Dame, I love him there with him. Obviously, bleeding, like I said, bleeds blue and gold. So yeah, he's some good guys just behind these top 4, that are really intriguing. Like Jack said, you might pick a few of these later on in drafts, and maybe they can hit. And a guy that I picked was a Florida State commit, Luke Croman-Hoke, 6'4", 205 pounds, so good size. He's a 4-star guy like the other guys, just sat behind the guys we mentioned at the top of the show. He was the 5th ranked quarterback in 247 Sports Composite and 4th ranked on 247 Sports in general, which is pretty good for him. And what stood out to me before I mentioned the tape, actually, he was got him to his team to the 4A Georgia playoffs, which is pretty good. Like Phil mentioned the how it works and stuff with the leagues in high school. So 4A is not too bad. He completed 168 passes from 267 attempts. So the percentage is down compared to the other guys we've mentioned, but threw for 2,578 yards, 24 touchdowns, and just the 2 interceptions, which again is good. We also put 558 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground, which is pretty good for someone his size. Like sometimes when they're that big, you think they'd struggle, but he is pretty good as a runner, even with his size. But what stands out straight away for him is his arm. And actually, I haven't watched everyone out of this recruiting class. I've watched like probably the top 8 or 9 guys now, like some a little bit more than others. But out of them guys, this guy's arguably got the strongest arm. He's a real gunslinger. You know, he's got a beautiful deep ball. You know, I think when you go back to you watch a few of the games in high school, I think Phil mentioned it. Like, we don't get the privilege of watching the full high school tape. They just chop up some highlights, and it's normally the best bits. You know, so but that's all you know most of the time. But yeah, some of his deep balls from 50 yards, like 50 yards plus and stuff, you know, like hitting into the bucket, you know, inside the hashes. That's his strength, you know, despite obviously having the rushing upside as well, which is a positive. His strength is his throwing, you know, can really hit tight windows, you know. So if you go and watch his tape, he really throws into like tight windows with like high velocity, you know, like which look like risky throws. And just to have in his senior year just 2 interceptions with how he throws is quite impressive. He's one that, like, I think I'm probably going to, after watching him, probably pick up late on a few times as a swinger, because just the arm talent in itself, you know, and obviously upside of rushing. But it's unlikely we're going to see him this year. Obviously, Florida State traded for I was in the NFL, then brought in DJ Ugalele as a transfer, so he's probably going to start very well. I say probably going to start. If it's Clemson, if it's his Clemson days, he's probably got a chance of not starting. But if it's what we saw in Oregon State, then he's probably going to start in 2024. So look for 2025 for Luke Coleman Hope to put his self forward for the starting job, just like the other 2 players that they mentioned. So yeah, he's like I say, it's the first 2 weeks of watching tape, but this guy really stood out for me. So yeah, I'm excited for. It's great watching tape and stuff and everything. It's something like, I know we've got certain people analytics, but I just love sitting down and watching some tape. To be honest with you, it's really enjoyable, and it gets you excited for these prospects. So
we need it when football's not on.
It's a good point. Before we move on to our sell, keep and acquire section, I haven't put this in the show sheet, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. With the guys that we've mentioned, obviously DJ Lagway is a 5-star guy. If you're going into Devy drafts this year, you know, Devy drafts that you've already been 2 or 3 years down the line, so the top players have gone. It's not startups. We'll start with you, Phil. Is DJ Lagway the first guy you're gonna take, or have the other guys got a chance?
I think it's between 2, isn't it? I think it's between the first 2 we mentioned. DJ Lagway has got the makings. If everything goes to plan, like sorry to throw ridiculous comps around, but like he could be that kind of Cam Newton frame, that Cam Newton size. You know, the athleticism, the way he runs is very Cam-esque, and you know, if he could hit those heights, well then it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Obviously. After that, I think the safest floor is perhaps Julian saying. So if you just want to play for a floor that you know is probably going to get drafted and score you consistent kind of points every week, with perhaps not having the highest of ceilings, you know, and you're just looking to use him in that super flex spot rather than as your QB1, then I think I would, you know, say safety first. I think if you want the safe pick, Julian saying.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, if there's one guy I'm taking, I'm looking for Dylan Raiola. I think the hype around him and the like pro readiness. Obviously, he's not NFL ready, but he has everything going for him that he is ready to develop further into a pro ready quarterback. In Devy, I am playing the stocks market with quarterbacks, so I want someone who's going to come in and play and show off his talent, and Dylan Raiola is in the best position to do that, and then I can sell him for profit. Hopefully, that's the ideal. I think the other option is trying to pick between Julian. Sorry, this is ignoring Lagway. I'm not saying this is the next option, but something else I'm looking to do is who's going to be the Ohio State quarterback, because as you say, in recent years, Ohio State has got quarterbacks drafted in the first round. So if I've got an inkling of who's going to win that job, this probably not this year, but next year, then I'm going after that guy. But I'm not ready to. I haven't made that commitment yet. I haven't watched enough of Julian Sayin, but that's the other way to make some profit on your Devy picks.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you raised there, Jack, about getting more value later on potentially and stuff if you're gonna play it that way. I think for me, if I'm like thinking about how my rankings look at the moment, I think Phil put it perfectly with like Cam Newton. I think the high ceiling is DJ Lagway as it stands. Obviously, we know that could go sideways, but DJ Lagway's ceiling is very high for me. Dylan Raiola is a good player as well, but DJ Lagway I just see a lot of like NFL type players already in him. If he can put it all together. So yeah, that's where I'm going with that. So just thought I'd throw you off guard there, guys, without following the show sheet. So we'll move on to sell, keep, acquire. We did start that a couple of weeks ago. I feel like I should go first because I feel there's a lot of people going to be asking questions about this, and then these two can tell you. Can probably cool it down a little bit with their selections. So my selection is sell Damian Martinez. And before I get started, Damian Martinez is a very good player. I've got a few shares everywhere, but I just want to throw him up and stuff. I'm not saying as in a sell all your shares if you've got them, but I feel like as a running back in Devy, obviously after his first season we're impressed, but in 2 seasons, his true freshman season, his sophomore season, he's been handed off the ball. Yeah, he carried the ball nearly 400 times already in 2 seasons, which is massive for running back. We're on about, I think we mentioned it in one of the early episodes, I think the second episode about tread on the tires, with running backs, and I'm already concerned how much tread there is on him. Obviously, we've seen with Derrick Henry, like he is an absolute animal, and that it does happen, but it's very rare that running backs go over with so much tread on the tire and keep it going for so long. People like Todd Gurley, who looked electric for a couple of years, picked up injuries. It's a volatile like position, and like you say, 161 carries in his true freshman season, 194 carries in his second season. It's just kind of alarm bells early on, and on the other side of that, we might see more this year, but he's clearly a bell cow running back. He had 4 receptions in his first season. He only up to 11 in his second college season. Obviously, we'll see his first season, but obviously that's another thing where I'm thinking. Obviously, he's not seeing the ball, as a receiver, so it's another concern. But as a whole, I think he's a fantastic player, fantastic runner with the ball. He's averaged 6.1 yards in both his seasons when he's got it. I just feel that like if you have got, I say 3 or 4 shares of Damian Martinez, it's a great time to sell him now while he's doing so well. But you don't want to hang on too much with him if you get 4. Say if you got 4 or 5 shares and he goes into the NFL and you see 2 good years out of him, or even 1 good year and he starts to decline. No, you've seen it where players decline in the first season in college. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there as in like I'm not saying he's a bad player. It's just the concerns there as how much volume you've been seeing already in college. So yeah, we've got that one out of the way. Prepare for the comments below of like how outrageous it is. But we'll move on to Phil, and we'll calm it down a little bit, Phil.
Yeah, no worries. So I am going out everywhere I can this offseason to acquire Tyler Brown, wide receiver from Clemson. In just 5 games last year as a true freshman, he logged 52 receptions, 531 yards, and 4 TDs. He wasn't expecting to see the field. He got an opportunity to contribute mainly due to a lack of production from kind of previous Devy darlings like Burr Collins and Adam Randall. And then the unfortunate injury to Antonio Williams, who spent kind of the majority of the season kind of sidelined. I can pretty much guarantee you in all but the deepest leagues, Tyler Brown will be available. And when you kind of consider, yes, Clemson have struggled in recent years. but they're still an elite program, and they still do get high kind of valued recruits. He was a 4-star recruit, but kind of really flew under the radar. 5'11", 180 pounds, so he's a smaller receiver, but he's a yards after catch kind of monster. And when you kind of watch him change direction and the fluidity that he runs with, he's so exciting to watch. He sinks his hips into his roots and kind of fires out of his breaks. His change of direction really is fantastic to watch. He's played from the slot and kind of as a Z receiver. And yeah, I'm super high on him. He's rising all the time. Every time I sit and try and kind of write rankings and look at who's available where, I keep seeing him available. And I just think, do you know what? I'm going to have another share. I'm targeting another share of him in this league and in this league. And, it's good to kind of keep a diverse portfolio just to kind of make it fun and interesting. But like, I'm super high on this guy. And if he's available in leagues that we're in, I will be taking him. Like I say, I rank him higher at the moment than other kind of high profile recruits from last year's class. So guys like Brandon Innes, Matthew Golden, John Tay Cook, Jurian Dickey. At the moment, I have him higher than all of those guys. I appreciate they've got a lot of football left to play. But in 5 games, 52 receptions, 10 targets a game, he's got the potential to go and be an absolute target hog. Now, how that'll change with Antonio Williams back next year, who knows? But he's certainly done enough to get on the field and stay on the field. And I think there's nothing but good things coming for him.
Yeah, it's a guy that I obviously really have my eyes on, to be honest with you. So saw a little bit last year of him in games, but didn't realise actually how well he'd done until you've thrown it out there. And it's always good having that kind of production in your first season. Another guy who's coming off his first season, Jack.
Yeah, same class. That I love that shout, Phil. I think especially acquiring him for someone like Brandon. If you've got Brandon Innes or Jerry and Dickey who rated higher but have done nothing, like absolutely nothing so far, you could trade for so much more on top of Tyler Brown if you're giving up Brandon Innes or Jerry Dickey. So I love that pick. I've gone with another acquire, and you're going to have to bear with me because it feels too obvious to say go and get the next Ohio State receiver, but it's Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, who came in the same class as Brandon Innes, the lower ranked recruit of the two, but he got on campus early, whereas Brandon Innes couldn't because of just how IMG Academy work. They don't release their players to colleges early, but it really served Carnell Tate well to be on campus learning and putting the graft in. He lost his black stripe, which is an Ohio State tradition for players that kind of earn the respect and have really earned their place on the roster. Obviously, they've already been given it, but they have to earn it, and you lose your black stripe. And he lost it the quickest out of anybody for the last 7 or 8 years because of how well he was performing in practice and how well he had taken on the playbook and how physical he was. And now he's an obvious pick because he did play quite well. He didn't play loads, but he still racked up 264 yards and a touchdown on just 18 receptions, which is like a 14 yards per reception average, which is great. If that continued forever, he'd be the wide receiver one everywhere. But he played a lot of cleanup time in games that Ohio State had already had in the bag, because he was playing behind people like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and Julian Fleming and some really experienced, talented wide receivers. Now, the reason I am going to acquire him now is because his price is just going to go up and up from now. So your freshman hype is starting. So this is the time for me, particularly if I've still got a first round pick in my Devy leagues, I will trade that plus for Carnell Tate, because he is going to get a chance to play on the outside and alongside Emeka Emeka Egbuka. They'll be the two primary receivers for Ohio State this year in a Ryan Day offense that throws the ball a lot. And Carnell Tate has the rounded game to play any receiver position. He can play the X, the Y, or the slot. He is strong at the catch point. He's athletic. He's quick. And if you don't get him now, I just don't see him being an affordable acquire at any after 2-3 games of the season. I think you've got to get him before the season starts, and that's why I'm going all out for him now.
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow suit on you two guys and go for the have a get off air in a couple of minutes and go have a dabble at a few trades to get these guys. As soon as you start talking about trades, it's just what you want to do, and you want to get some acquire some players. And yeah, I think you've obviously we knew what kind of Tate were like as a prospect and stuff, but you just made it more tantalising for me there, Jack, to go out and get a few more shares of him. But yeah, that's it for us this week. Looked through some 2024 quarterbacks, should I say? Jumping a year. 2024 quarterbacks. Likely going to do the 2024 running backs, but since Phil mentioned a draft at the start of the thing, we might have to squeeze a Devy mock draft in somewhere along the line. But I feel like we'll do running backs first. But yeah, we'll discuss that off air. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on X and YouTube at Wildcard Devy, and obviously the main account, Fantasy Wildcard, where it's got all the shows there that come out live. And obviously follow the guys. Obviously you can follow me at Jordan87, follow Jack at JackCD222 at X, and Posh Plays FF for Phil on X, all there under our name. So these two are definitely good follows on X. Maybe not sure about me, but yeah. In a couple of weeks we will likely probably do the running backs and then maybe do a break off for a Devy draft before we move on to the wide receivers and tight ends. But guys, it's been brilliant again as always. Thank you for coming on, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks' time.
Looking forward to it.
See you soon.